Yo, what's going on, guys? Seth Spartan here, nutrition, training, and hormone expert and Prometheus Pro bodybuilder with Prometheus HRT, the world's best testosterone and hormone replacement clinic. Use my code Spartan to save on either testosterone or HGH replacement therapy, or peptides, or Anavar, or Anadrol, and the list goes on as long as you qualify. So, guys, without any further ado, this is Equipoise unleashed like you've never heard it before. Guys, we're going to go through all the pros, unbiased, uncensored, absolutely everything you could ever want to know or need to know. Then we're going to go over into the cons. Again, unbiased, uncensored, everything you need to know. We're going to drop down into dosage information, tell you guys everything you need to know regarding dosing, and then we're going to finish up with any extra additional information that plain and simple people either don't know or they don't talk about with Equipoise EQ. So guys, without any further ado, let's get started. This is Equipoise Unleashed, starting with the pros. And make sure, guys, you stick around for the cons. There are some pretty big, serious cons, and a lot of them are not talked about at all in the bodybuilding, fitness, athletic industry, like the fact EQ Equipoise causes cancer. So stick around for the cons. Moving into it. Pros. Pro number one. Equipoise EQ, anabolic androgenic rating or ratio of 100 anabolic to only 50 androgenic. This makes, on paper, just looking at the scientific anabolic rating charts, we see that Equipoise EQ is an extremely preferred, efficient, and effective anabolic steroid at building muscle, androgenic sides to anabolic component. We're talking nitrogen retention and also hypertrophy. And this also arguably could be a big push for Equipoise in the medical community. The medical community is always looking at good muscle building drugs and muscle building nitrogen retention drugs and anti-muscle wasting drugs, with low androgenic components so that they can prescribe them across the board in, higher dosage or lower dosages for men, women, children. Anyways, moving on from the anabolic androgenic rating. Testosterone derivative, talking about test. We know testosterone, again, is anabolic 100 to androgenic 100. And this is where this anabolic component of 100 is also going to come from. We'll get into the androgenic component and the side effects and that chain in a second. But all you need to know, guys, moving on to the second pro, is that Equipoise is a testosterone derivative anabolic steroid. Think, for example, we have testosterone derivatives, we have DHT derivatives, and we have 19 derivatives. Guess what Equipoise EQ is? It is a testosterone derivative anabolic steroid, and that would make it a second class or a second class or second generation anabolic steroid for that matter. We even have third generation anabolic steroids. Think the drug Dianabol. They took testosterone, then from there they made Equipoise, and then from there they made what? Dianabol from Equipoise. So a drug like Dianabol would actually, guys, be a third generation or third class anabolic steroid. Moving on. So went through the anabolic androgenic ratio. Talked about Equipoise being a testosterone derivative. Next on the list, and it's obvious, 14-day half-life. So with Equipoise EQ, you have a very positive effect in the pros of a long half-life. What is this going to do? This is going to ensure that Equipoise is deposited into the bloodstream slowly, efficiently, effectively with a long half-life. This is going to cause minimal side effects than something like a propionate ester, which is going to spike rapidly and is very prone to causing, you guys guessed it, side effects. The only downside or drawback from using a longer ester, in this case, boldenone undeconate with a half-life around 24 days total. This is going to cause, guys, some problems if somebody needs to get off the drug or cancel that and get that molecule out of their system. You're not really going to have the androgenic sides so much like we're going to get into, again, with a component of 50. But there are still some reasons, and we're going to get into that, in the cons in a little bit. We're talking kidneys, stroke risk, clotting, and also even a heart attack risk at higher dosages. So we're going to talk about some reasons why you would not prefer this half-life of 14 days, but let's save it for the cons. Moving on in the pros. Equipoise, EQ, is an amazing muscle builder with half the androgenic sides of testosterone. Now, this has to be said because this is an unbiased, uncensored video. This is Equipoise Unleashed, so we got to give credit where credit's due. Plain and simple, guys. Period. Without a doubt, undeniably, it has to be said. Equipoise is an amazing muscle builder all around with only half of the androgenic sides. What does this mean? This means a drug like Equipoise, theoretically, I'm not telling you guys to do this, but theoretically, a drug like Equipoise, you could dose this at 1,000 milligrams, no problem, and have very low androgenic sides and have your body well tolerated and also stack on and build a ton of muscle mass. So with Equipoise, it's an amazing muscle builder. You know, not because the anabolic rating or ratio system is so high, especially, you know, in the anabolic component, but the reason for this, guys, is because with that low androgenic to 100 anabolic, you can dose it up, you can dose it up, you can dose it up. And also we're going to talk about the estrogen conversion in a little bit, which is very low, which makes it even better, even more moi for building muscle. Again, if it weren't for some terrible sides with Equipoise, then, you know, this would be an anabolic steroid for the books, both medically and for performance. Moving on, we talked about this a little bit. Low androgenic. Equipoise has low androgenic effects, metabolism in the human body. This is because, guys, I might as well go through everything. So let's start with testosterone, because Equipoise is a testosterone derivative, so we might as well start with testosterone. Testosterone enters the bloodstream. What happens? 5-alpha reductase enzyme is going to grab it, convert it into DHT, dihydrotestosterone, right? All right. In the case of Equipoise, the root hormone is boldenone. So boldenone, Equipoise is in the bloodstream. The same 5-alpha reductase is going to grab it, and it's going to convert it into what? Well, it's not going to convert into DHT. It's going to convert into dihydroboldenone, which is one of the most powerful anabolic steroids in existence in terms of anabolic component and effectiveness. So DHB, dihydroboldenone, so again, testosterone would convert into DHT via the 5-alpha reductase, and Equipoise would convert into not DHT, but dihydroboldenone. Now, this is going to have an androgenic component of what? Only 100. Dihydroboldenone will only have an androgenic component of 100 versus DHT. What is DHT androgenic component? Somewhere between 300 and 400. So this is going to drop those androgenic side effects way down. And this is why the androgenic component is 50. And, you know, we could even argue that it's a little bit lower than what, what they found with 50. Maybe it's even lower. Maybe it's more like 30. But that's where that nice low androgenic component is coming from, and that is going to be just in terms of muscle building. This is going to be, again, would be a cream of the cake anabolic steroid for muscle building, and we already established in the last point that give credit where credit is due. Equipoise is an amazing muscle builder just because it's holding on to that perfectly, the same anabolic component of testosterone. So, moving on. Low estrogen conversion. You guys have been waiting for me to talk about this. This has to be talked about. Equipoise, also known as EQ, will only convert to estrogen right about 50% of testosterone. What does this mean? If you take 500 milligrams of testosterone, you're going to get, X amount of estrogen, all right? Versus 500 milligrams of Equipoise, you're going to get half of that conversion, about half of that, depending on genetics and some other things. But, we can safely say that 40 to 60% the conversion rate of testosterone. And that's where this figure that everybody has already heard, Equipoise only converts to 50% estrogen versus testosterone. So, again, for an anabolic steroid to have the same anabolic component at only 50 androgenic and have the ability to dose it way higher effectively, and also have an estrogen conversion of only half of that of testosterone, really, guys, what more could you want? But again, there's some serious pros that we're going to go through in literally a minute or two. So moving down to the pros, let's finish up talking about the pros. This is another big one that everybody already knows, or hopefully should know. RBC, red blood cell count. Have to talk about this. So with Equipoise, you are going to have a higher affinity for binding onto the kidneys and stimulating red blood cell increases. So what does this mean? Equipoise is extremely powerful, potent at what? Jacking up red blood cell count and increasing vascularity. The two are connected. So you're going to increase with Equipoise to a higher extent than testosterone. You're going to increase red blood cell count, you're going to increase vascularity and total blood volume with Equipoise, milligram per milligram. And again, some drugs just have a higher affinity for causing red blood cell count increases. Testosterone will cause a lot of red blood cell count increases at high dosages, but Equipoise more so. And probably the worst anabolics, probably the highest causing red blood cell count anabolic steroid of all would be Anadrol, and that's why Anadrol is continually prescribed for anemia, in the United States, and I would have to check other countries. But anyways, moving on. So your take-home message here, guys: huge red blood cell count and vascularity increase, and also blood volume increase. A little bit less though than a drug like Anadrol. However, people are not taking 1,000 milligrams of Anadrol a week, but people do regularly, unfortunately, take Equipoise. It's not anything unlikely for people to take 1,000 milligrams of Equipoise. Dropping down, moving on, guys, into endurance and stamina increases. This has to be said, and this piggybacks, really, guys, off of the last point I just made. So we talked about red blood cell count, vascularity, and an increase in blood volume. This is going to do what? Jack up endurance and stamina, especially with sports and really any competition where an increase in endurance and stamina. And this is why, guys, we can talk about why Equipoise was made in the first place. Guys, really, Equipoise is made as what? It's made as a doping drug. It's made as a performance enhancement drug. We talked about, or we could talk about how Anabol, we'll touch on this for a second, we'll move on. Anabol was strictly produced for what? Performance enhancement. The anabolic steroid Anabol was made in the United States for performance enhancement, to enhance athletes, make them, bigger, faster, stronger. Equipoise, like Anabol, was created for what? The same exact thing, to enhance performance and output, except not for humans. It was designed for horses. So the question is, why didn't people just take Equipoise, right, and use Equipoise instead of Anabol? Well, we're going to get into that, why this drug is only approved for veterinarian use, and it has to do with, again, Equipoise, being a probable cancer causer. And that's why, people did not use Equipoise, and that's why, that can be argued why Equipoise was not approved for human use. Because if it had been approved for human use and we didn't have that con, guess what? We would, that we would be using Equipoise instead of Anabol. Anabol arguably would have never been created, because Anabol is what? It's an Equipoise derivative. Man, you guys are getting a lot of good information. Moving on to the last pro here. We talked about everything. Tons of pros with Equipoise. So it's a shame that, it really has some bad sides, but that's the way it works with man-altered hormones. If anytime you leave testosterone or, human growth hormone, anytime you take any of the body's natural hormones and you tweak it, you might get some pros. But again, you're altering basically, God's given, functioning of that hormone. And you might get some different pros, but ultimately you're gonna get some cons in there, some worse than others depending on the anabolic steroid. So, summing up the pros, and there's tons of them. What are the pros with Anadrol? It has a great pros profile. But moving into the cons now, we have some huge downsides. Let's start with the most obvious downside of Equipoise and also every single anabolic steroid, even your body's natural testosterone. With anabolic steroid misuse or with anabolic steroid misuse or abuse, same as testosterone or any other anabolic steroid, and it holds true with Equipoise, plaque buildup in the arteries, cardiovascular disease, and heart wall thickening. Anytime you have any anabolic steroid, you take your pick, doesn't matter. Anytime you abuse any of these drugs, even testosterone, what's going to happen? You're going to speed up plaque buildup in the arteries. This is proven based on the medical study. Go and watch my video, Response Why You Should Not Use Anabolic Steroids. I post that study. Go have a look at it. And if you want to stay in denial, that's fine. But I'm here to give you guys the best information and not sugarcoat anything to the left or to the right. Again, this is unbiased, uncensored, both pros and cons. Just telling you guys how it is. But with Equipoise, plaque buildup in the arteries with misuse or abuse. This is going to lead to cardiovascular disease also. This can cause also atherosclerosis, which is a hardening of the arteries, and also heart wall thickening, which is basically heart wall thickening, guys, is where from using anabolic steroids, even testosterone, you're using them too high or for too long, what's going to happen? The heart's a muscle, guys. It's going to hypertrophy. So what happens? The heart hypertrophies and the wall of the heart gets thicker. This makes the heart less effective at pumping blood out. And this is what can kill a lot of bodybuilders. Because a bigger, stronger heart does not always mean it's going to be able to pump more blood out. Why? Because that chamber is not going to be able to contract as fully. We have things like an athlete's heart where the left ventricle gets bigger. This happens with endurance any high-performing athletes. And then when you're done, it goes back to normal size. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about where the heart wall itself actually hypertrophies, gets thicker, and impairs what? The function of the heart. So this, between heart wall thickening and plaque buildup in the arteries and cardiovascular disease, what kills bodybuilders 9 times out of 10, people usually don't die, the kidney, all the other side effects, guys, from anabolic steroids are pretty much nothing. Okay, I'm just being realistic with you in terms of death. All the anabolic steroids, pretty much nothing. The only 2 really damaging things with anabolic steroids are the same as they've been from the beginning of when people started, synthesizing testosterone and anabolic steroids. Heart wall thickening, plaque buildup in the arteries, and also cardiovascular disease. It's all the same exact thing. You misuse anabolic steroids, that's what's going to happen. And again, it's dependent on how much, for how long, and your genetics. So anyways, now that now that we've gotten through that point, and I got to do it every single video, I got to talk about that because there's people out here that think that you can use, 500, 750, 1,000 milligrams for the rest of your life and not have any problems. No. Go to a cardiologist and get your heart checked, guys, because it's just like smoking. Except anabolic steroids are nowhere near as bad as smoking. But the thing is that the more you take, the longer you take, these things build up, and it's proven in that study I was talking about. Once you go over, if you've used anabolic steroids for longer than 2 years total time on, you have significantly more plaque in your arteries. And you also have heart wall thickening. Again, it's dependent on, how long, how much, but in studies, if you've used over 2 years of anabolic steroids, you've caused damage, all right? And we're talking misuse or abuse, not under doctor's supervision. We're not talking TRT, HRT here. All right, now that we got through that in detail, let's move on. So Equipoise, what's the big problem? Cancer. So what they found, and I want to say what they found, Equipoise is labeled as a probable carcinogen by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. So this is arguably why Equipoise Stayed a veterinarian drug. Why it never was approved for human use. All right, for this very reason. Okay, and again, I've never heard anybody but me talk about this, so this is why it's important to talk about. So, for this point alone, the plaque buildup in the arteries, cardiovascular disease, heart wall thickening. That aside, you could totally use Equipoise. You could totally use Equipoise safely, legally through your doctor. But because of the second point here, it's a probable carcinogen. Why, after knowing that, and hopefully after you watch this video and I talk about this, my question to you, why would you ever use this drug? Even with all the pros, it's not worth it. It's really not worth it long term. It's not worth it at all. Short term, long term, it's not, why would you put this garbage in your body? If it can cause an effect like that, there's, not arguably, my opinion, this drug is not worth using. The second that you say, it's probably, going to cause cancer. Okay, so moving on. And guys, I don't want to say that, if you use Equipoise, 100% you're going to get it. No, that's not the way it works. I'm not going to say that, but based on, the studies they did, it's a probable carcinogen. So I would argue, why even mess with something like that? If you. All right, enough on this. Moving on. Equipoise. This is we talked about increase in red blood cell count, vascularity, blood volume. This ties into increased risk of stroke, clots, kidney damage from high blood pressure, not from androgenic sides, but from what? From the increase in blood volume pushing up your blood pressure. And also heart attack. And this, guys, would be primarily not at low dosages, but at high dosages. Think when bodybuilders are using, above 500 milligrams a week. And like I said, it's common. It's common in the bodybuilding fitness industry world for people to say, hey, I'm going to take 1,000 milligrams of Equipoise, okay? So moving on from here, let's talk about high estrogen sides. Now, this is really not a concern much at all because we talked about the conversion rate of estrogen. So this really isn't much of a concern, except with, again, like the point before it, high dosages. All right? And if you want a list of high estrogen signs, like gynecomastia, acne, oily skin, smelling bad, mood swing, type into Google high estrogen signs in men, and you can get this laundry list, okay? But we're not going to go through every single estrogen sign. It's just not worth it. Shutdown. Let's talk about shutdown. Equipoise, like every other anabolic steroid in existence, no matter what it is, or even SARMs. Yes, SARMs cause shutdown. We have to talk about this because, this one guy I know took SARMs, was taking SARMs, and even after 2 weeks of SARMs, at a moderate dose, his testosterone came back at 200. So don't just listen to, I don't want to name these people, but they're so popular on YouTube. Please, guys, do not listen to these gurus, coaches, all these people, especially these people who own companies and are promoting SARMs. Please, guys, don't listen to these people who tell you SARMs do not shut you down. They shut you down. If you take SARMs for 2 weeks, test your testosterone, I guarantee you'll be at 200, 300, which is not. So SARMs cause shutdown, same as anabolic steroids, okay? Please, just before you bash me or bash what I'm saying, I've seen the blood work. I know how this works. Go and take your own blood work after a couple weeks of SARMs and then come back and tell me I'm wrong. You probably are not going to. So moving on. Androgenic sides, question mark. Well, same as with estrogen, you're not going to have any androgenic sides or problems unless you're cranking dosages really high with Equipoise. Again, we talked about androgenic component, half of that of testosterone. And we already talked about how it's a veterinary drug. We talked about Equipoise being a veterinary drug and why. So guys, that's pretty much it. That's all the pros. That's all the cons. Let's move into dosing, and then we'll finish up with extra and get out of here. Dosing. I put this underlined. This is my professional opinion. But check what your doctor's going to say the same thing as I'm saying because it's not approved for human use. With Equipoise, listen to me. With Equipoise, there is no safe dosing. Why? Because Equipoise is a probable carcinogen, which means it's likely to cause cancer. By, again, the International Agency on Research on Cancer, or for Research on Cancer. That's what they've concluded, okay? So my recommendation to you is going to be the same as your doctor's, whether he knows this or not. There's no safe dosing. And this is, again, is probably the reason that Equipoise was never approved for human use, and that it stayed for, just a performance enhancer for racehorses. I'm sorry, guys. We looked through the pros. It's an amazing muscle builder, especially when you can dose it so high with almost no sides in the estrogen conversion. It's like a cherry on top, but then you find out inside the cake, there's a hive of bees. Okay, it's just not worth it. I'm sorry, it's just not worth it, even for all the benefit. All right, so let's say hypothetically, let's say either you don't care about your health, or there's no cancer risk. All right, you pick one. I'm not recommending this, but if there was no cancer risk, then I would say, 250 to 500 milligrams would be fine for Equipoise. But again, just because of those risks, I would say there's no safe dosing. All right, hate me all you want, but I'm just going to tell the truth. Finishing up here with any extra additional information, guys, it has to be stated, Equipoise is abused or heavily abused by athletes across the entire board. We're talking not just bodybuilders, but bodybuilders, athletes, fitness, everything. With across the board, all kinds of athletes, Equipoise is abused. Why? This goes back to what? The huge boost in endurance and stamina. It comes down to what? Endurance and stamina. Equipoise does a great job with this. Even more so arguably than testosterone, because of the red blood cell count increases at lower dosages. So that's got to be said. Now there's people, Jay Cutler, who's a multiple-time Mr. Olympia, Dorian Yates, 6-time Mr. Olympia. So you take Jay Cutler, you take Dorian Yates. Both of these guys were huge advocates of Equipoise. Jay Cutler goes out now. I can't understand Jay Cutler for the life of me. For his whole bodybuilding and then moving past his bodybuilding career, this guy never talked about steroids. It was just all nutrition and training. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Jay Cutler is talking about steroids. And guess what Jay Cutler says? Oh, he's taking all this Equipoise. He's taking all this Equipoise. And Dorian Yates, was taking all this Equipoise. He liked Equipoise, right? So both Jay Cutler and Dorian Yates talk about taking, lots of Equipoise over time. Right? And you could say, well, they're healthy now. They don't have problems. They don't have, just because two people don't have problems is not an excuse to use something. There's people, I know people that, have smoked and they don't have lung cancer. But guys, just because a couple people use a drug and they don't have any problems now does not justify using it in the future. Even though there's two famous Mr. Olympias which openly talk about using Equipoise, it does not mean it's safe. So, guys, I wish you the best. Stay safe, stay healthy. I'm not trying to just be a clown here and rain on everyone's parade. But, I would be doing, myself, my clinic, and also, all of you a disservice if I just was a cheerleader for Equipoise and I didn't tell you guys the facts. Because, guys, there are anabolic steroids that you can use safely through a doctor and not have problems, okay? Testosterone, obviously, and also drugs like Anavar or Anadrol are extremely safe and more effective even than Equipoise long-term, depending on how you use it. So, again, go watch my videos on those compounds. I don't think I have a new Anavar Unleashed out yet. I have Anadrol Unleashed out. But, guys, please, that's my take-home message to you guys. Do everything safely and healthily. Is that even a word? Healthy. Do everything right, guys. Stay safe, stay healthy. Seth Spartan. And guess what? You guys already know we are out of here.